everybody. So Ducain's missing everybody quite a bit, and we're missing each other. We haven't gotten to get together for a few weeks now, since we've been in quarantine. So instead of being able to play music, we thought we would do a little off-stage stuff for you, and I could show you some of the gear and equipment that I use in our band. So here we go. Alright, so first we're going to talk about guitars. This is my newest guitar. It is a 2019 Gibson Custom Shop 60th anniversary 1959 Les Paul Standard. It's definitely my #1 guitar and was the second I picked it up for the first time. I got this guitar because I saw an R8 on Facebook yard sale that I wanted really bad, and I offered a killer trade, and the guy didn't take it. So that got me going crazy for a custom shop, and I just couldn't sleep at night because all I could think about was getting one of these guitars. So I finally did, and it was well worth it. This guitar is stock, except for this sweet Strat, and I just use Ernie Ball Slinky regulars, 10 to 46, and that's it for this one for now. The guitar that I played for about the last year is this Les Paul. It is one of the new, well, new-ish 60s standards. This is Bourbon Burst. The R9 is a Kindred Burst, I believe. But this one is just another stock Les Paul standard. They came out with the 50s and the 60s standards, and I went with the 60s. And I was really happy with it, but once I wanted one of those custom shops, everything changed. But this is still a great guitar, and this would be my second guitar. This one, I don't get to play it a whole lot simply for the sake of not wanting to change guitars on stage all the time, but I actually got this guitar from Austin. I think a 2004, 2004 Flying V. This is the only guitar that has 11s on it, and the only reason it has 11s on it is because that's how Austin had it set up when I got it, and it felt good, so I kept it that way. Everything else is 10s, 10 to 46. This thing can get pretty nasty, so I use it for the harder stuff if I can. And the last one is this 2018 Firebird. Firebird was one of my dream guitars basically forever. I don't know, since like 2000 something, 2001 or 2. And I never got one until last year, and I absolutely love this guitar. It's just so much different than anything else that I play, and it's great. It's in I think a custom finish. There weren't very many in the cherry burst and gold hardware. I don't know, it's just sweet, and it's different than any other Firebird that I've ever seen. So I'm really happy with this one. And you see I've got picks on all my guitars, and what I use is actually, they're called coarse picks, and kind of a weird shape. One side of it is kind of sandpapery, and the other side is flat or smooth, so you can really dig in and get some grit from the pick when you want to. So it's pretty cool. I think we will talk about amps next. So now on to amps. This is my amp that I will always be playing at least It is just one of the Fender Deluxe Reverb, I think custom 68. I actually got this amp before we started Ducain, just because, I don't know, I kind of decided it was time to start playing and I wanted to play in a band again, and bought the amp before I had a real reason to get loud, but it all fell in like it was supposed to, and this has been here with me in Ducain from day one. I run it clean with some reverb, but for this one I get all the drive from my pedal board. We'll talk about my pedal board in a minute, but this is my wet amp. When I run a 2 amp setup, I do wet dry, and the Fender is my wet amp, and brings me to the Marshall, which is my dry amp. So the Fender has all the reverb, delays, modulation, and all that kind of stuff going to it, and it actually has separate drive pedals that go into it. And then the Marshall only has, I think, 3 different drive pedals that go into it, for just different sounds, but no modulation or reverb or anything like that goes into the Marshall. I actually got this Marshall when I was in Virginia Beach visiting my buddy Matt. Hey Matt. Went to Guitar Center because we don't have anything like that around here, and this was sitting there, and Austin happened to be in Virginia Beach visiting his family, I think at the same time, and I sent him pictures of it, and he told me that if I didn't get it, he was going to get it, because we were both in search of plexis, and I ended up able to get it. And when I brought it home, it was so amazingly loud that it was nearly impossible to play. I would have the volume on like maybe 1/4. It was like an on-off switch. It was nothing or death. So actually ended up getting it modded by Richie Hall, and I just told him I wanted a master volume on it, and just to make it an awesome Marshall, what he would do to it. And I gotta be honest, I don't know what all he did to it, but when I got it back, it blew me away. The master volume is perfect. It sounds amazing. It screams. So I love this thing. The way I run it, the master volume is actually here on the front where the presence control used to be. Presence is in the back. I run the bass all the way off, and then treble in middle all the way up. I have it jumpered, so channel or volume 1, channel 1, whatever, is dimed, and then channel 2 is like maybe on 7.5. And I don't know, I just feel like these things sound great when you have them cranked like that. And the cab, this is just a Marshall 1968X, and it came with 4 greenbacks, 25-watt greenbacks in it, but I actually switched out the bottom 2 speakers for vintage 30s, Celestion vintage 30s, and I don't know, it just kind of tightened it up a little bit, a little more bass response, a little tighter on the low end, and it still has that greenback snarl, and I don't know, it works really well. I love that speaker combination. It gives me everything that I want out of it. So really happy with the way these 2 sound together. And around the time I got this, I actually had gotten this not very long after, whenever that one was basically unplayable in a live situation. So I got the Friedman Smallbox 50, and this is basically a modded, modernized 50-watt plexi also. It's got 2 channels, a plexi channel and I think BE channel, which is higher gain. And this cab also has 25-watt greenbacks on the top and vintage 30s on the bottom. This amp is also amazing. It was just, once I got the Marshall back from Richie Hall, it just had a different different snarl to it. I don't know. I just loved it. So the Marshall has been it to run in combination with the Fender once I got it back. But the Friedman is still a great amp, and you never know, maybe one day I'll get to run 3 amps at the same time. But for now, it's the Marshall and the Fender, and the Fender being the one that if I can only use one amp, I use it because that's what my pedalboard runs into. And we will talk about my pedalboard next. All right, now it's time for the pedalboard. It's a lot, so let's get started. Okay, so this is kind of like the heart of my pedalboard, the Boss ES8. It saves me from doing a lot of tap dancing while I'm singing, so I don't have to click on all the pedals. I just, you see it's got the name of the song there, but like Phoenix, for example, so I just click that button and it takes me to the first part of Phoenix, and then up here I can show you that it'll kind of it'll change some of these when it's time for each song. You can see it's changing those for me. So when I first play Phoenix, it's got the Strymon timeline and the Strymon Big Sky for the reverb and delay sounds that I've got going. And also on the intro of Phoenix, I'm using the Pog and the Analog Man, King of Tone. But yeah, this really saves me a lot of movement on stage. I can just hit each button and it'll take me to the song preset setting that I need. I can mute and tune. Tuner is just the TU3S. It's one that you can use with this kind of setup. It doesn't have the foot switch to turn it on and off. It's always on. So my main sound that I use the most is the King of Tone, the Analog Man, and I usually just use this one side, and then I use the left side as a boost for when I need to get loud, like on the intro to Phoenix, or if I play any kind of loud rocky stuff. So for the Fender, everything here goes into the Fender except for the EP booster, the JHS double barrel, and the JHS, I forgot what this one was called, but those run into the Marshall, and everything else is for the Fender. I've got this radial ABY. I run both amps. The Y is on at all times. I run both amps on at all times except for like the organ sounding part in Tenacious Soul, and this thing kicks off the Marshall, so we don't have a big loud screaming Marshall coming through with the organ sound. So like I said, the King of Tone is my main sound for the Fender, and everything else is just for flavor for specific songs. This is a JHS Muffaletta. It's just a muff fuzz pedal that has 6 different types of big muff versions on it. And this is the Greer Amps Ghetto Stomp, and it's just kind of like a tweed, Valco, Supro, that kind of small, pushed up to the edge tube amp. And then this, the Keeley Tone Workshop. It's actually got a Keeley compressor, Katana boost, and I think a 1961, like a Marshall type, but I only use right now the Tube Screamer, and that's for a few songs. But yeah, that's the only part of that pedal that I currently use. And then the Katana, I have another Katana, Keeley Katana boost, and I use that for, you know, different sections of songs where we like to get loud and wild. For the compressor that I have, the Wampler Ego, it's actually what I use as a volume cut for the organ type sound that I talked about during Richie's bass solo in Tenacious Soul. This actually helps control the volume. I use that to control the volume and to make sure that you can hear all of the strings for that organ type sound. Right next to that, you can see I've got the Line 6 wireless. I don't always use it, but when I do, it's pretty handy because I don't have to fling a cord around at all times. These are the picks that I use, coarse, that I mentioned before. All of this is wired up with lava cable tightrope kit. I made all the cables myself and I haven't had any trouble with them. I've been using them for quite a few years now. And then they call them the big three. Got the Strymon Mobius, Strymon Timeline, and Strymon Big Sky. Basically, I have those 3 pedals, so I don't have to have 15 other pedals to replace what they can do. Actually, probably way more pedals than that. But yeah, and then I've got the Electro Harmonics looper, and we don't use it a whole lot, but it's just kind of like for maybe transition type stuff or intro, just some noise to make for transition. Cable wise, I use Mogami Golds. They're all 18-foot cables. Yeah, I just really like those, lifetime warranty, and haven't had any trouble with them. Other than that, I think we are... Oh, the pedal board is a pedal train. I don't know which pedal train, but it's a big pedal train. It's bigger than I thought it was going to be when I got it, so I was like, well, I can throw a couple extra pedals on there to fill it up. So that's part of the reason I have so many pedals, so I can fill up the pedal board. But it's fun, so I like it a lot. And if you look underneath, I actually have... I run it with the Voodoo Labs pedal powers, and then I've got this little patch bay. It's actually from Emerson Custom. So I've got to the guitar amp, and this is actually for acoustic that I would go, and it runs into this direct box, but I don't have it plugged in right now. Yeah, that's the pedal board. Alright, well, if you're still watching, made it this far, we appreciate it. Thanks for listening and hanging out with us, and hopefully we'll have some more stuff for you guys soon. Thanks a lot, and see you as soon as we can.